Our next guest on the Any Given Runday podcast has a master's in sports nutrition, is a marathon runner, content creator who makes videos on the science behind your training, and the host of the Fueled Runner podcast. Sian Seccombe, welcome to this week's episode of the Any Given Runday podcast. How are you getting on?
Hello, thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Was it weird having a podcast asked you to come onto a podcast?
I've done a few, and it is always fun. Like, it's always fun just seeing like how different people do it, because it is such a weird. We all just decided to like sit in our offices and talk on our laptops, and then like put it on the internet. So I feel like it's always quite a mutual thing of like, oh, like let's see how everyone else does it. It's a fun thing to do.
Yeah, we've never been asked onto another podcast, so I don't know what that says about me and Sean. So this is as close as we're going to get to another podcast. So we're very happy about it. Like any guests we always have on, it's so good for us to find out your background and where you've come from. So Sean, where and how did you get into sport, and how did you get into running most of all?
Yeah, so I've always been super sporty. Ever since I was young, I ran. So the typical like wet field cross country at school, all that kind of stuff. And I kind of was in every single sports team at school because I could run and I was fast, but I could also carry on going for ages. It's like, oh, she can play hockey, she can play netball, she can play basketball, she can just do all of it. So yeah, I kind of spent my whole childhood just running around in various forms. And then, yeah, did quite a lot of athletics at school. And then when I went to uni, I kind of wanted more of a team sport. So I was really, really into netball. And I also grew quite late. So I was tiny until I was like 16. So I was like the small, like pocket rocket kid. I grew and I got really tall. And then everyone was like, oh, she should be a shooter. She should play more netball. So yeah, I really led into that. And then because I was playing quite high level netball, I couldn't also run. So I just like run at the weekends for fun. But then when I moved to London after uni is where the kind of running came back and got a bit more serious. So yeah, that's kind of my running life.
From playing netball, basketball, indoor court sports, quite cardio intense. In fact, I would argue in my schooler days like that, when we did everything, Olympic handball, netball, anything and everything just to not be in school. But they were probably some of the hardest sports I played in the younger years. How did you find your fitness, especially with a growth spurt, when you transitioned into that netball kind of sport, more serious?
To be honest, I was always kind of the fittest on the court
Very good.
Because I had an endurance base as well as like speed, high intensity. And like we used to always laugh, like the boys would be like, oh, netball's not that intense. And they'd come and watch a match and be like, oh, wow, we understand why you guys are like in the gym all the time and like doing all these crazy erg workouts, because it is so intense. So then having that mixture of kind of endurance as a base for that meant that I was like very fit for like court season, and then continuing my fitness like over the summer by just running made a big difference. And I actually ended up being the fitness coach for quite a lot of the other netball teams, so trying to get people's like aerobic base up so that then the court fitness applies. So it's a very different, like you say, it's a very different type of fitness to running long distances. But actually, there's a certain argument that to a degree, just an aerobic engine is going to set you up for both really well.
When you look, when I played soccer ball, I was a goalkeeper. So the furthest I ran was 18 yards. And that was all I was willing to run at the time as well. But when I never really, okay, we played our national sport GAA where I would have played outfield. I would have ran a lot in sport, but at the start-stop thing, and would have had that base level fitness, but never what I know now to be an aerobic base. How important, looking back at your life and maybe being involved as a fitness coach, when you see people probably like me who wouldn't cross the road in a hurry if they didn't have to, and would you then look at the likes of athletic clubs or base their importance for youth development as up there, if they want to be the best at whatever it is they want to do, but to build this aerobic base of fitness and endurance? Is athletics and is that probably the best place for kids to start and always have a hand in, no matter what they want to achieve, always have a hand in?
I think honestly for like kids, it's just any movement is good movement. And it's distracting them from the fact that like you're doing exercise. It's like, no, you're having fun. You're doing something fun. And I think building that as a foundation of movement for life is so, so important. And it's massively then like tied into nutrition and tied into healthy lifestyle. And a child is far more likely to continue in some form of activity if they've done that as a child. Like me and my siblings, my parents used to drag us around the rainy mountains of Wales when we were younger. And we used to absolutely moan about it all the time. And now all three of us, out of our own choice, spending our own money, will go to some mountain somewhere, walk around in the rain for 4 days. And it's kind of those things that are built into you as a child of saying, okay, a really fun way to make friends is by playing sport. And all of my closest friends are all from sport. And I think as well, you develop a certain mindset, especially if you then end up going into high level sport. Like my parents never pushed me into sport, but they always supported us into doing support into sport. Because like my dad was like played a lot of rugby when he was younger, quite high level, and like they never pushed us. But if we wanted to be in doing martial arts, athletics, this, they were like, yeah, sweet, go for it. Because then it just opens doors, I think. And it gets you have a different type of lifestyle.
Did you start off then in the fitness world and then see like nutrition take your eye for a reason and go down that route? Or did you always know at the start of going to uni and all the rest, nutrition was the path you were going to take?
So I did human biosciences at uni with the idea that I was going to do medicine. And then when I graduated, didn't get into medical school the first time I applied. So I worked as a clinical exercise specialist. So that was basically working with cancer and cardiac patients using exercise, nutrition, lifestyle interventions to support them through pre-post treatments. And exercise and nutrition as a lifestyle has always been something I've been super passionate about. But at that point, it was more kind of the medical aspect of it I was looking at. Then I burnt out so quickly that I couldn't hack doing frontline medicine. It was just too much. Decided, okay, I won't do medicine. I will go and learn how to run a business and support these healthcare businesses because they're doing amazing things, but the people who are really good at this don't know how to run a business. But I also can't do the frontline stuff, so let's do the backside stuff, and then we'll try and like make things happen. So I had a weird, squiggly career path into becoming an accountant, and then was like, okay, the aim is always to go back into healthcare and wellness in some capacity. Then I was kind of known as the one in the office for like, oh, she's basically a physio. She's like super. What Sean got in our lunchbox today? I was I'm not built for this corporate world. So yeah, I left that, and then as I was like, I basically worked with lots of health and wellness startups, so all who have aims of like supporting healthy lifestyle. And kind of through my own running, through everything else I've done, like I've always had a real interest in nutrition, especially how it applies to performance. And I always knew I wanted to do a master's in further education, but I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do. I just knew it was kind of this big bubble of exercise, nutrition, wellness, like lifestyle stuff. And then actually kind of it made more and more sense that it was actually like the applied sports nutrition. So that's the route I went down. And then that's what I'm currently doing.
You have a great quote on your Instagram. I love it. It's just running is metabolically expensive.
Yeah.
That just ties up with the performance and the running. For people hearing that for the first time, what do you mean by that?
So a lot of people, I think, look at the curse of the wearables, right? They look at their watches and go, oh, I went for half an hour run. I burned X many calories. No, you did not. That is absolute.
That is a guess.
And also, running is not just about the physical movement that you've gone out and done for half an hour or an hour or whatever you've done. When people say to me, oh, I've signed up for a marathon in 6 months' time, but that's fine. I can do a 12-month training plan, right? I've never run before. Every alarm bell in my head goes off because there are so many adaptations that your body needs to be able to run comfortably. It's tendons, it's ligaments, it's bone cycles, it's hormones. It's not just energy in, energy out. There are so many other biological processes that are happening to allow you to become a better runner that are basically charging your bank of biology going, that's a stress. This is a stress too. This is also a stress. So actually going, oh, I'm just going to casually start doing a half marathon training plan doesn't quite stack up. And I think that's as well why we're seeing such a big increase in the kind of number of stress fractures, and everyone's got shin splints and everyone's got dodgy knees and blah, blah, blah. If we're not going to try and do 0 to 100, these things actually shouldn't be happening, because biologically our bodies are quite happy running, but it is expensive. And thinking about it kind of as a cost to your body that you do need to be conscious of to kind of balance out what you're doing with what you're putting in and how you're actually treating your body.
What would be some of the, I suppose you're probably looking at someone who trained for an Ironman in 16 weeks. So I am an alarm bell signal, probably a traffic cone in the world of doing the silly things. And it's, look, the thing is, I know I'm doing the wrong thing. I just choose to do it anyway. That's probably my biggest issue. What are some of the basic things that you were seeing? Let's say, for example, we are that person who in our world now, we've got the Cork Marathon as we record, and it's happening, Dublin Marathon. People will have signed up last year. They had a late start to the year, and now it's getting to that 20-week period, and we're saying, okay, I'm going to start back training, and alarm bells are going. But what are some of the key misconceptions people have for, even if they have ran before, they've done maybe 1 or 2 before, but they've left it a long time, and what are the I suppose the repetitive things you always see, and you go, okay, guys, you probably really need to consider this with your food or your training, or maybe consider this, this, and this. What are the stuff you would bang your head against the wall saying again and again and again to people?
I think firstly, it's very much that people need to consider their training history. And when we say training history, we're saying, okay, have you been consistently running for a number of years? Have you never run before, but you are really strict with Pilates and you've been doing Pilates 6 times a week for the last 2 years? Like, what are your body's strengths and weaknesses? And before you even think about picking a running training plan, being conscious of what you know your body is good at and what might be lacking. So you might know, okay, I have really good core stability because I do something else, or I do loads of yoga, or I do loads of weight training, or I might have really well-trained quads. Great, they're strengths. But then you need to balance those out when you pick a training plan and go, okay, but just because my body's good at this, I'm a novice when it comes to running. Like, don't go in and go, yeah, I gym 5 times a week, so I'm going to pick the intermediate training plan. That is the the first place you're going to go wrong. That actually you're far better off picking a plan that is a lower grade than you think you can manage and getting to the start line than picking a higher intermediate advanced training plan and making it to week 6. You've got shin splints, you're broken, you can barely walk. There's no way you're making it to your start line. So I think that's definitely the first thing to consider. And then it's also kind of thinking about what your goal is. So is your goal just to do the race? Or is it, I want to try and beat my PB? Okay, well, what was our PB last time? But also, what did our life look like at that point? Because it's also that if we're adding in training for a race, where are we getting the time? Where are we getting that stress? Yeah. So you've said it's metabolically expensive, but what are we not buying with our bank that we were buying last week that we're now going to spend on running? Like, where's that trade-off coming from? And just trying to be realistic. Like, when people say to me, oh yeah, I've signed up for a marathon and I'm going to try and lose 10 kilos and I'm going to get a 25-minute PB, I'm kind of, oh, let's level down. Let's maybe we want to do it and have fun. Maybe that could be a good goal. And I think that's realism sometimes. And it's really hard because on Instagram, we just see everyone being like, I've done 9 marathons and I've got a 20-minute PB every time. And I live in alpha flies. And it's like, oh gosh, this is so overwhelming. But actually, when you then look at it from a kind of real running purist, not purist, but like a 5-10 years ago running mindset, people would be like, you are insane. What are you doing? Stop. And that's a lot of the traditional training principles of endurance running have been completely lost in the Instagram world. And I think it's quite toxic and it's quite dangerous. And I am always trying to promote, let's just have some fun and have some balance and just think about our goals in a more kind of holistic way of, I still want to be a human who has friends, has a family, sees them, can speak to them, and has something going on in my head other than I'm trying to knock 5 minutes off my 10K time. Like, there's more to it than that.
It's kind of like I think what Instagram's kind of doing now, it's showing people the goal and not the journey. And a lot of people are seeing the end product person crossing the line, the 8-pack, the 6-pack, the whatever pack, the 1-pack in my case. But it's very much the end goal. Everyone wants the medal, but no one is appreciating how difficult the journey is. And until you, I suppose, balance that, if for want of a better word, to enjoy the training, to like getting up to go for a run. Okay, sometimes getting up for an early morning is not enjoyable, no matter how much you enjoy it. Until you actually start running, you start to enjoy that. Back to your point on weight versus goal versus everything. A thing I've seen a lot of people bring in now is, I am going to run a marathon to lose weight. And we've seen a lot of people use this as goals. We've seen influencers do it as well. And it kind of reiterates my point about the journey. Like, weight loss, if you are marathon training, will add in, obviously, that expenditure that will naturally result in some weight loss. But a lot of people don't necessarily fuel the jet, the way I like to say it. They don't necessarily fuel the journey and focus on actually giving the body what it needs to conduct, or at least get to the start of your training block for a marathon. Are a lot of people making them mistakes?
Yeah, I think trying to go into a marathon block with the goal of losing weight is something I would never, ever, ever advise someone to do. It is not a sustainable way to get through a marathon training block. If anything, you might gain weight during a marathon training block, and that is absolutely fine. If anything, that's probably more encouraged. I would rather, if I was training an athlete, I would rather they gained a few kilos during marathon training than lost a few kilos. Because if you're adding all this extra stress to your body, remember that going for a 30-kilometer run at the weekend is absolutely not a normal thing to be doing. Especially if you sit at a desk all week, then you go out of the weekend. Yeah, you might have done 20K during the week or whatever, but broken up. And then you run a 30-kilometer run. And then you go, oh, I know I should have a bowl of oats before. I should have bagels and eggs after. I should then have this. I should then have, but I'm not going to, because I quite like to lose a bit of weight. And I ate some gels while I was running. So that makes up for it, right? No, absolutely not. Because then your hormones, firstly, all over the place, they're not going to be happy. You then aren't having enough energy to correctly recover. So you're then going into your next session under recovered. Your muscles haven't been able to adapt how you would like them to that 30K run. So you're then already on the back foot. Then you do another run and you're in a deficit again. But we're now talking such large deficits that you're not losing weight at this point. Your body's just going into panic mode. Your body is going, what are you doing? I'm just going to turn my metabolism down. I'm going to just turn this down, turn this down, turn this down. Periods get lost. Hair starts breaking. The effect of that is so much worse than fueling properly and potentially gaining a little bit of weight. But in all likelihood, you won't, because your body's super smart and you have to trust it to balance. But when someone has the mindset of, I'm trying to lose weight, and you're doing this really, really stressful training program, like stressful on your body, that mixture, I don't know many people who it hasn't ended in tears for, because it does just lead you down a burnout injury pathway that you're going to feel horrible after your runs. You're going to not enjoy them. You're going to hate the whole experience. You're going to hate the marathon. And then you're going to go, I'm never going to run again. And then that's not very sustainable, is it? So it's actually going, fueling a marathon and fueling properly, you are more likely to sustainably, if your body needs to lose any weight, it will. Like, trust it, it will. If your body does not need to lose weight, it won't. And if it doesn't feel happy or comfortable doing these distances at the weight it's at, then it's going to basically make you stop. So it's that boundary of the mindset with the physical activity and going, what's more important here, that I actually do a marathon, have fun, can smile, say hi to my family and friends. And for this whole period, I'm not like the worst, most grumpy human being in the world. And I also don't get injured. and I come away with a medal going, wow, that was an incredible experience, I might want to carry on running, versus coming out going, oh yeah, I lost 5 kilos, but I feel horrible. I never want to run again. I hate all my friends, and everyone also hates me because I'm so grumpy. It's like if you want to do weight loss, like running and like training for races is definitely not the place to be doing it.
That mindset of I'm trying to lose weight and then having a bag of Haribo
Yeah.
just doesn't add up. Like something's not right there.
Carb gels, 30 grams of sugar in a shot.
And it's also though, like that Haribo and that carb gel is so important for the run. Like if you aren't having those things during your runs, you're going to end up in an absolute pickle and you're going to have a horrible time. So that's where, like you say, those two worlds colliding are just not somewhere we want to go near.
I think probably you hit on something that people should focus on. It's the mindset of the activity. So what I have done in the past, and I've constantly yo-yoed with weight up and down, and I find myself that when I'm not running, I put on, but then I try to run, and then I see the numbers come down, and then I feel good about myself. And that's what people are looking for, is that feeling of good. But it's the mindset of being active. And you said at the start of this podcast, movement is the medicine. It's what we need. And if you just know that the byproduct of moving as part of a training plan will naturally lead to fat being burnt as we increase an aerobic base for fuel and energy and all the things we've talked about. Should we be pushing, particularly as us as a podcast, we have a platform, we're talking to people about the mindset of don't worry about weight, worry about training the next day and what is required to train, and everything else will happen as part of that process. 20 weeks, 16 weeks, everything else will fall into place. As you've correctly said, the body will adapt.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing, it's focusing on what our bodies can do being so much cooler than what they look like. And actually, you're going to have a far healthier heart. You're going to have a far healthier full cardiovascular system. Your lung capacity is going to increase. Your cholesterol will go down. You'll be stronger. You'll be fitter from doing that run. And actually, if you say, okay, you were aiming to lose weight, but you stayed the same way, or maybe you gained a kilo or two, firstly, it's probably glycogen storage and water, or strength or muscle, because that weighs so much more. But actually, why would that matter if you're actually healthier? Like, weight does not equal health. And a lot of people probably don't need to lose weight. They just think they do because they don't like the way they look, because someone else on Instagram looks different with their medal hung around their neck. That medal hanging around your neck doesn't have any ability to define what you should look like, how much you should weigh. It's like, oh, you ran the race though. Like, that's the cool thing. And a healthier body is a happier body. And we're kind of accepting that our bodies will get to the place that they need to be and want to be if you trust them. And actually having the enjoyment of the movement and then your body landing where it lands actually is the byproduct, but it's going to be a healthy body. I really do agree that it's like the mindset that we should be encouraging.
So people now are going to start fueling up towards their long runs and stuff like that. We know they should be fueling for performance. I've heard you talk in a podcast about having, I always think healthier would be, and I still think healthier and all the fat loss, and I'm like, oh, I should have a whole meal or whole wheat bagel before my run because it's quote unquote healthier than white bread. But you would say no, white bread for a reason. And what would you say you should have before going for a long one breakfast, and probably just as important after the run as well?
Yeah. And I think as well with this, it's so personal and working out what works for you and your stomach. I am a white bagel, bit of peanut butter, so that's some fats to help stay fuller. Jam, honey, and a banana is my kind of pre-long run because I've got lots of carbs in there, simple and slightly more complex, because carbs are on a bit of a spectrum. So there's not good carbs, bad carbs. There are carbs which digest slower and carbs which digest faster. So honey, super quick, a bagel, a white bagel, more in the middle, and a banana, depending on how ripe it is, could be anywhere on that spectrum. So also oats are a great option, but they're more towards the kind of fibery end. So they're a bit slower digesting. Again, depending on which type of oats you have. Are you having the ones in the little packets where you rip the top off and pour them in a bowl? They're really refined. So they've been milled down loads. So there's less digestion to happen. So they're a great option, because the whole idea before a run is you want carbs that your body can easily digest and use as a fuel source. So the idea behind like whole grains and stuff is they are fantastic for your gut and they do digest slower. But before a run, you don't want your stomach to be focusing on digesting during your run, and you don't want to have to leave like 2.5 hours before going for your run. So ideally, you'd be able to have your breakfast, finish it, an hour and a half later, you start running is the kind of sweet spot. But I know for sure, like if I've had a big bowl of granola or brown seeded, really like fibrous bread or rye bread or something that's much higher in fiber, I'm not going to be out the door at that time. I'm still going to be going, oh, my tummy feels a bit like, I'm not sure about this. So that's where it's kind of the use case of food. And that's something I've been trying to talk about a lot more is there is no bad food. It's just when you use it. So would I sit at my desk and have a bag of Haribos at 10 a.m? Absolutely not. But if I'm going out the door in 5 minutes time, I'm feeling a bit low on energy, will I pop a few Haribos in my mouth? Absolutely. Because they're going to give me some quick sugar to give my blood sugars a little boost, and then I'm off out the door happy. But I'm not saying Haribos are good or bad. It's just, when am I going to be eating those? And that's the same with like kind of the white bread versus the brown bread and the fiber content, because fiber is basically just something that slows your digestion down at the end of the day.
And then that post-race feeling, because that's something a lot of people will struggle with. They'll finish with their friends. It's always a coffee, maybe it's a bun, maybe it's jump in the car, don't eat anything for an hour because I need to get back. The kids have got football, yada, yada, yada. What is your recommendation for fueling timings, particularly after the long run? Shorter runs, obviously, dependent. I know myself, after an interval session, you can try feed me. I can't. If it's a max effort, I can't stomach anything for at least an hour afterwards. Chocolate milk, maybe. But what do you recommend for that post-race? Because again, we're looking at longevity, we're looking at prevention, we're looking at training tomorrow. What do you recommend for people, or key things to look at?
Yeah, and I definitely think that's the key thing to remember, is that you're thinking about your longevity of your running ability. So especially with a long run, and like you've just said with max intensity, sometimes you finish and you're like, oh, I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling food for a while. But actually that is a super, super important window to have something, because later you in the day will be so grateful. Because even if you really, really don't want to do it, a carton of chocolate milk, honestly, will change the rest of your day. And it sounds wild that something so small and just like, oh, well, you can drink and sip water. And I'm not saying you have to chug the whole thing down in one go, but within 20 to 30 minutes of finishing a long run, if you can have something, so either a squares bar or a banana, if you're having a coffee, make it a mocha. That's just adding some extra carbohydrate for free, basically. It's just extra fun. Or put some sugar in your coffee. Because what you're trying to do is you're trying to get your glycogen stores to start recovering, which in that first 20 to 30 minute window, they're most receptive to. So all that fuel you burn on your run, you need to start replacing. So by having something, your body then goes, oh, okay, cool. We're chilled. We're actually quite happy. We're fine. We don't need to panic. We are okay. We can carry on for the rest of the day. Because if you skip having something in that first window and you go, oh, you know what, I need to drive home, I need to have a shower, I need to walk on my kit, I need blah, 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 and it's 2-3 hours later and you go, oh, I should probably eat something, you'll be over the hill. You'll probably feel horrendous already. And it will be pretty hard for your body to recover for the rest of the day. And that's when you kind of get like the long run headaches and the like, I can't get off the sofa, and you just feel really like, I sometimes, in the past, I've had it where I feel quite like sicky. I just feel like, well. Yeah. And if you've not having something in that first half an hour window, completely stop that. And it's having something on the drive home and then going, okay, I can wash my kit, I can have a shower, and then I'm going to have a proper balanced meal. So I'm looking then for my fibrous carbs. So am I having whole grain sourdough? Am I having brown rice, brown pasta, potato, something really carby as my base, ideally a complex carb. So those are the ones that digest slower. Then having a protein source with it. So honestly, whatever you want to have, like whatever floats your fancy. And then some like fruit and veg for antioxidants and for extra fiber. But it's also planning it. So I will often know, okay, so pre my long run, I've had my bagel, etc. I then know I'm going to finish at this cafe with my friends. Okay, cool. So I'll have a mocha and a cinnamon roll, or I'll have something carby just to kind of boost my stores back up. we're rocking and rolling. I've probably had whole milk in my coffee, so I've got some protein and fat in there. Great choice, actually. Then when I come home, have a shower, I will have already thought about, have I got something in the fridge that I can have for my like post-run meal, basically. I tend to do kind of like rye bread or whole grain sourdough with eggs, spinach and avo, just because it's easy, takes no time, and I don't really have to think about it. But that's on the provision that being later is the provision that I've had something in that 20 to 30 minute window.
30 minutes, yeah. It makes such a big difference. I suppose the carrot and the stick, people always know like, oh, you should because you'll feel better. But for whatever reason, we as humans like to punish ourselves and we'll still skip the coffee and everything. What is the downside to skipping that coffee in terms of the body and what it will do, apart from the feeling sick and the headaches? In terms of, does the body begin to break down as we look at longevity again, because the marathon plan is all about the ability to train again tomorrow?
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's looking at your kind of schedule and being like, when am I training again? Because the sooner you're training again, the more important that 20 to 30 minute window is. So there's some science and studies that say, okay, if you're not training again until like you've run that morning, you're not training again until like the next evening and you're doing something low intensity, like it's not super, like your glycogen stores will recover over time. Like it's not like the end of the world if you don't have something in 30 minutes. But there's also evidence about energy availability. So if you then are putting yourself in a really low energy availability state, so you've reduced your blood sugars, your glycogen stores are low, your body's going, oh, hang on a minute, don't love this. And if you're then staying in that low energy availability state for a good few 4-5 hours, that's then going to have where you see more of a knock-on impact. And I mean, the studies on it are still quite theoretical because it's very, very difficult to measure. And it's kind of ethically a bit questionable to do this to people to find out. So, yeah. But the theory, like, totally makes sense, especially for women. There's loads of studies now about kind of RED-S, which is relative energy deficiency in sport, and actually energy availability throughout the day. So actually, it's not just, oh, in my day as a total, am I okay? Did I eat enough? Yeah. But if I ate all my carbs at 7 p.m. and I trained at 7 a.m., that my body's still not going to be happy because it's going, I don't trust when you're going to give me some carbs. So my stress, my hormones are already going to be way off the scale and they're not going to be happy. And you can't play catch up like that. So it's also remembering, like, as much as we want instant gratification, if we don't give our bodies instant gratification in terms of nutrition, they're not going to give us the long-term goal. So if you're not supporting your activity and going, yeah, cool, body, I really stressed you out, but don't worry, you chill, you're fine, here's a chocolate milk as a reward, it's going to get a bit antsy. And then that is where you can start leading to kind of those, if you start getting like niggles that just don't really go, again, that's a kind of sign of there's something off on your recovery. And this is such a small win, like such a small win of having something after your run. I kind of don't really see the downside, especially if your bigger goal is, I'm trying to do a marathon.
A lot of what we're seeing now is people, like, I know, like, people laugh at me before a big race or a big run. I have chicken and rice in the morning because it works. It doesn't stay heavy in my stomach. People laugh at me all the time with my chicken and rice. It's something that works for me and I can digest it pretty quickly. And a bagel, peanut butter, as you have said, it's very individual. But a lot of what people are looking at now is intermittent fasting and training fasted. And again, it's a big red flag for runners. Based on the studies and stuff, is it more important that we fuel in the window just after sport? Or obviously both is more ideal to make sure your stores are up to date for glycogen for running and stuff. But which would be the scarier of the two, to miss the after or to miss the before?
Before, 100%. I would, just if someone said to me, I'm going to do this really intense session, but it's fine because I'm going to fuel after, I'd tell them to look in the mirror and say it again. Because if you think about how you fuel a car, you couldn't drive somewhere and then go, oh, but don't worry, I'll put the petrol in later. It doesn't work like that. You can't drive, then put in petrol. You have to put in petrol, then drive. So it's exactly the same way that your body works. It can't run off empty because that's when it's going, okay, right, lads, look around. Where can we scratch this energy from? Especially because your glycogen stores in your muscles deplete overnight. So when you wake up in the morning, I don't care how big your dinner was, sorry. That dinner is not 100% lying around ready to be used. It doesn't work like that. Like overnight, think you haven't eaten for 8 hours. So your blood sugar isn't going to be where it was when you went to bed. And then if you're then throwing in a session and then you're like, oh, it's fine, I'll top it back up later. Again, you're in that deficit where hormones are affected. This, like the systems your body's using, you're going to feel horrible. You're probably going to binge or like be really drawn to kind of the snack drawer at 11 a.m. or 3 p.m. You're probably going to crash. You're probably going to drink too much coffee and then rinse and repeat. Then you can't sleep because you've been eating weirdly. You get super hungry at night. The cycle then kind of goes on and on and on. And then we're into energy availability issues and kind of trying to play catch up is always the worst place to be. Like you don't want to be on the back foot with your nutrition. As much as I'd rather you had both, if you only have one, please have something before.
Yeah, okay. It's but it is, as you said, it's fueling. We are something that requires a fuel. Calorie is burning of energy. Like we're burning fuel, and that's what people. It's just it's become the latest thing to be talked about, and I think maybe more so on the weightlifting fitness side of the thing, where cardio maybe not as cardio intense, so they do fasted lifting and maybe they're targeting 10,000 steps a day just to increase the calorific burn, but not necessarily taking on a 10K or something of a high intensity or a long run. So maybe there is room for both, but definitely in the context of running, it's a difficult one to support.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, in the context of running, basically all of the scientific literature supports absolutely do not.
What is the science then? We've talked about fueling, but we haven't really touched on hydration. Can I get a quick fix or a fast track by using more electrolytes than less? Should I just use electrolytes before and then during a run, or what is your stance on that?
In all likelihood, you probably don't need any at all. You don't probably need a tablet. You can get all the electrolytes you need from your food. Unless you're about to go and run Marathon des Sables or you're going to be spending 5 hours running around in a heat chamber, it's very unlikely that you need additional electrolytes. You definitely don't need them if you sat at your desk all day, I can promise you. Because electrolytes, especially the tablets, majority of it is just sodium, which is salt. And you wouldn't have a glass of squash and then like sprinkle some salt in it. So that's essentially what these flavored electrolytes are. It's just a glass of squash with some salt in. And a lot of people, when they say, oh, I feel so much better when I drink electrolytes first thing in the morning, it's not the electrolytes, it's the fact you had a glass of water is actually what's made you feel better. So the guidelines in terms of fluid hydration and electrolytes, they only support taking sodium during running. No other electrolytes are required. Like the absolute trace amounts of magnesium you might be losing through your sweat are not going to be making a difference to everything else that's going on. And it's also to be drinking to thirst, especially during running. So it's far more dangerous to end up with something called hyponatremia, which is basically overhydration. That's far worse than being a little bit dehydrated by the end of your run.
Is that where the salt tablets come in?
Yeah. So the guidelines, I think, is 300 to 600 milligrams per hour of running over 90 minutes. So basically, if you're starting to take on water during your run, you also want some form of sodium in there. But I would just say check the back of your gel packet, because in all likelihood, there will be sodium in your gel. Therefore, you don't need an electrolyte tablet in your vest as well. A lot of people say, oh, but I get cramps, so I need to take them on my runs, etc. Again, it's something that taking that salt tablet right then, unless you're doing like a 100-kilometer ultra, for that salt tablet to then have an effect, you've probably finished running, you've probably finished a race. So it's going, okay, what's my diet looking like before my long run? Like, am I maybe having a bit more salt in the day leading up to my marathon or my half? And it's also the real issue with kind of electrolytes and fluid is that it's so personal again. And that's kind of a theme with a lot of nutrition and stuff. But especially with fluid, my sweat rate will change on every single run I do. So even if I went and got loads of those sweat patches that people test, every single run will be different. So I did Hackney Half a few weeks ago. I sweated way less because I was so cold. But I would have thought, oh, it's a race, I'll sweat more. But I didn't. So if I'd gone in being like, oh, well, I need to drink X amount per hour, blah, 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 I'd have probably drunk too much water. And it's things like, are you running in a crowd? There's loads of people around you, so therefore you're even hotter. Are you wearing a different top? Is it humid? Is it like, there's a million things that will affect your sweat rate. And also when people say, oh, I'm a really salty sweater, there's actually a lot of science now that says the amount of sweat you salt is, the amount of sweat you salt, the salt you sweat is linked to your diet, not like your inherent biological ability. So again, it's the kind of thing of going, okay, yeah, you might like, there's a trick of licking the back of your hand. And if it's super salty, then you need like some salt tablets. It's kind of, that's more of a ultra endurance running tactic, which is fair enough. But actually already you should have thought, okay, I'm running over 90 minutes. So my fluid needs to have sodium in it, or I need to be getting sodium from somewhere. But yeah, this, I'm going to call it the electrolyte craze is quite mental. Like I think every single sports nutritionist out there, when they see someone with one of those bottles with the big branded like electrolytes on them, they're like, oh, good, great.
Water.
And it's honestly one of the things I get asked most, like, oh, I'm going on a 10K run. How many tablets of electrolytes should I take? None, absolutely none. Like you wouldn't add, like some of it as well, so on the back of some of the electrolytes, where they're recommending 2 sachets a day, these have a gram of salt in each tube. Our daily recommended amount of sodium is 4 grams, which is already over what our body needs. The government just doesn't think anyone can actually eat that little salt because there's so much in our food. So if you're then adding an extra 2 grams of salt and you're not doing a hectic workout, you're just eating loads of extra salt, which I thought we spent years trying to stop people doing.
That's a good point.
Yeah. So yeah, sorry, that's my little electrolytes high hill.
It's no, but it's again, it's good to get the insights into what we should be using and what to avoid, or some of the fads, because everything is a fad, a workout, a this, a that, and you know, if you follow, there's information everywhere. You just don't know which is right, which is wrong, and which to follow. And that's why the beauty of the podcast, same as your own podcast, it gives an opportunity to kind of separate fact from fiction with opinion as well, because everyone is different, everyone has a different need. A lot of people we run with as well, and again we stick to the individual athlete, and again I know it's going to be individual. Some people might feel the gels, can't handle the gels during the run. Some might feel a little bit sicky. Some might even get sick during runs, but they can't explain. And we've had a couple of guests actually discuss times where gels weren't working with them, they're feeling a little bit sicky. So if we know 3 people have done it, there's the probability there's a couple of thousand people with a similar issue. What are some of the tricks of the trade you've come across for people mid-race who are pushing? They're going for a PB, they're pushing hard. What are the tricks that you have for people who mightn't necessarily like the gels or stomach gels well, or how do you get around that fueling the X amount of grams per hour for those kind of athletes with stomach issues?
Yeah, I think it's in the context of pushing hard and running at a high intensity. So if you're looking at 70-80% of your VO2 max, at that point, you really need to be fueling with carbs. And one of the reasons you can end up feeling sick is because you haven't had enough. So a lot of it reverts back to using gels during your training and training your gut. So there's lots of studies that show you truly can train your gut to handle these carbohydrates whilst you're running. Because most people who have GI issues during a race are trying a fueling strategy for the first time and have not tried gels in this manner during their training. So if you're training for a half marathon PB, say, and you're going to be running your half marathon at 75% of your VO2 max, but you've done all your long runs where you've taken gels at 50% of your VO2 max in a zone 2 in a chatty heart rate, you have not trained your stomach at all to be able to handle digesting carbohydrates at that higher intensity. So you're literally doing this for the first time on race day, and it's quite likely your stomach will go, oh, hang on, no thank you, not sure about this. Because there's so many things that happen to your digestive system when you are working at that higher intensity. So blood moves away from your gut, you get changes in the permeability of your intestines, you get water balance changes, you get all sorts of things going on. you have to train your body to say, no, we can have some more blood going to the gut. We can handle glucose coming into our bloodstream. So it's going, okay, am I going to make sure I try taking a gel during a session where I know I'm going to be working really hard? Am I going to be introducing gels into kind of threshold runs? Am I going to be using gels in environments where I am, which is as similar as they can be to race day? And it's actually going, okay, don't go. If you say you can stomach 40 grams of carbs at the moment, but you ideally want to be hitting 60, 70, 80, don't go out and try and hit 80 straight away. Like, we're not going to do that either. It's gradually increasing it and going, okay, I'm going to shorten my fueling window by 5 minutes. And I'm not going to change from the gel I know I like taking, which is only 20 grams, to one that is 30 grams and try and shove it down in the same frequency. It's kind of making sure, like you increase your running slowly, you increase that carbohydrate intake slowly over your training block to go, okay, how much can I manage at the intensity? Because it's thinking about the intensity with the gel taking that's the kind of real piece that I think sometimes people miss and is often the reason you get GI issues.
It's definitely something. Yeah, sorry, Sean, I'm saying the same thing. I never heard of it because on a long run, I've taken gels, no problem, but heart rate 150, 145, never 175 when I needed a 30K. So it's definitely something never considered.
Yeah, and that's often why actually I know a lot of people look at marathon training plans that have kind of marathon pace efforts in the long runs or kind of more intense blocks in long runs, or treat long runs as sessions as being more quote unquote advanced. But if you are doing like your second, third, fourth marathon or half marathon, this all applies to as well, actually having those blocks in a long run can really help with your fueling because we're training our stomachs, not just our legs.
Phenomenal way of thinking about it. It's not just training the pace. It's not just training the heart. It's everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something that's so obvious. I'm gonna be honest. I know I've done it because I know at the point when I need to take them, particularly with those blocks. If I know I've got a marathon pace to finish a 2-hour long run with a 30-minute marathon pace, that's when I take, or in the 15, 20 minutes before that, I know, right, caffeine and a 40 gram or a 50 gram, and then I should be able. So, but I never did it thinking I was training my gut. I just did it knowing, I'm going to be hurting. I better get the gel in now. It wasn't so eloquently put like you have, and it definitely wasn't from a perspective of training the stomach for the race day feel, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. And it's also just thinking, okay, I need to let those adaptations happen also, because it's not going to feel great the first time you do it. There's a reason, I mean, they're not just for the runners, but my local park, there's a reason there's toilets there. And I've had it as well. I've had it loads of times where I've tried a new gel or I've tried to increase my grams per hour too soon, but it's experimenting and it's going, it's okay if this long run doesn't work because it's not race day, right? It's okay. Yeah. It's also okay if I feel bleh after. And I might not, in theory, need the gel for the run I'm doing. So if I sometimes end up having kind of awkward length runs where I'm like, if I was in the race, I'd have taken another gel now, but I've only got like 10 minutes left. So yeah, I haven't got a full fueling window in this run. And I get a lot of questions about this as well, but it's going, I'm actually going to take one anyway, because I'm training my gut. So I'm going to take one now because I'm running at a pace that I'll be running during the race. Yeah, I've only got 10 minutes left before my cool down, but I'm still going to take the gel because I need to tell my stomach, you're going to be having one of these every 25 minutes. So get used to it. And then the next time you do it, it's going, okay, yeah, we remember this. We've done this before. We know that more blood can stay in the gut. We can stay around our intestines. It doesn't all have to fly away and your digestive system doesn't have to shut down completely, because that's where you then get, as soon as you put something in it, well, straight back up. So it's just kind of, again, they're like working with your body and going, you're okay, I'm okay, I'll treat you nicely, trust me, we're doing this for a reason. And actually you do then get into a balance where the gel issues can become less. And I also think it's quite psychological for a lot of people. If you've had a really bad experience with a particular gel type, just change types, like just buy a different brand. I've got a friend who had one particular brand coming out of her nose at one point, and she has never been able
Oh
to.
no.
She used this gel for years, and she loved it, got so well, but she just had a shocker at a race that was too hot. Like, she really overheated, all her fueling went wrong, gels were coming back up. And although those gels had worked for in the past, it was then a psychological barrier that I can't do these. So she swapped gel type, we're fine again. And it is just going, you're allowed, there's no right or wrong, like it's whatever you prefer. Like, what can you carry? What feels nice? What tastes nice? Like, go again, it's, you're allowed to have personal preference. Like, I swapped between different brands to kind of get some like taste and mouth feel changes that I find helps make me feel less sick at the very tail end of a race sometimes if I'm really pushing. Or like Cliff Blocks, they're really good, like the chews, sometimes just to kind of top up in between. Because I find if I feel sick, if I eat something, I don't feel sick. So I just chew things instead. But yeah, so it's all just working out like little tricks that work for you.
It is one thing as well. That none of them taste great. You know, for a lot of them, that much sugar in such a small pack can sometimes taste weird. But there are others you can use. Like if you have a strategy, okay, I know this one isn't great, but the one after one is real easy, and I like the taste of that one. Like even mixing in a strategy like that can make you look forward to not this 5K, but the next 5K or the next 20 minutes.
Exactly.
Do you have, I know everyone's individual, but do you have types of food or supplements like a creatine or something that you think should be a staple in everyone's diet? Because I was looking at all your Instagram stuff and things you make. Threw me a complete sidebar because I thought you were no offense that when you said like burrito translates to little donkey, I'm like, no, she's had me on, so I googled that, and then you're like, are peanuts a nut? And I'm like, they're not a nut. No, I had to Google that. I feel like I need to Google it. And I've Googled are bananas a berry and see me bananas are more of a berry than strawberries are not berries. So my mind was blown on all these things that I have no idea now what the initial start was. I think my question to you was, do you have different foods that you think should be a staple of people's diets or create anything like that?
Yeah, I love doing things like that with my reels. It's quite
Threw me
fun.
off.
Because people have to crash in
Completely.
people have to crash in the car listening to this. Banana's a berry.
Yeah, it's quite fun though, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I think bananas are a superfood for runners, but I know not everyone likes them. The only supplements that I think are decent for runners are vitamin D and creatine. There is nothing else that you cannot get from your diet. So I am very anti the supplement industry. That's probably quite a bold claim, but you know what I mean? Like the green powders, everything like that's not going to change your diet. That's not, you can't outrun a bad diet. You can't, like, it's not going to solve all your problems. It's not going to magically turn you into a fairy. Like, it's, the supplements are, if most likely, are just a very expensive way for you to like feel like you're doing something good. But what you could do instead is, for the amount that £30 jar of supplement cost you, you could probably have bought vegetables for 3 weeks. So actually going, okay, we can make small swaps to actually get everything we need from our diet. But creatine and vitamin D, very difficult. Vitamin D, the government recommends, it's a guideline that most people supplement with, just because there's not enough sunshine for us here. So, and that can have a really big effect on kind of bone health and menstrual health for runners. And then creatine, you don't have to take it. Like, it's kind of one of those things of like, if you're interested in doing this kind of thing and you are doing a lot of kind of interval training, you're doing a lot of high intensity work, you're doing a lot of strength training, maybe creatine can be really useful. I personally take creatine and I found quite a big difference, but the amount you need to supplement with in order to see the benefits you can't get from real food, unless you eat something ridiculous like a kilogram of raw steak a day, which I don't think anyone's doing.
How much is the amount? Because I've seen recently with Rory McIlroy's big win, all I kept seeing, maybe it's just the circles I was on Instagram on, was just, well, Rory has 20 grams of creatine a day for he can hit the ball further and it's good for his mental side of things. But I'm like, 20 grams, gee, go through a tub like in a week.
I'm looking at the tub here, it says 3 a day.
Yeah, I usually heard 3 to 5, and then Rory with his 20. I'm like, last time I looked at Rory, he's not exactly look like Arnold Schwarzenegger. So what's going on? Like, I don't know.
I mean, so there's one argument that some people argue that it should be linked to body size and body mass. So I imagine he's huge. So maybe that's their theory. But I'd like to chat to his sports nutritionist about it and see where this is coming from. And also, is he being sponsored by someone who makes and sells creatine, would be my question. Because honestly, creatine monohydrate in its purest form is the only thing you need. You can get that on Amazon for like £5 for like 150 grams. But then you can also buy for 150 grams, that can cost you £50 with a lovely snazzy label, and it's going to promise you the world, and it's exactly the same ingredient. The scientific guideline for the improvement in kind of recovery, muscle growth, muscle function, etc., is 3 grams a day, 5 grams during a loading phase. I don't encourage people to do a loading phase just because that's where people can see the issues with kind of water retention and feeling a bit weird and feeling puffy and gross. Because the whole idea of creatine is that you're increasing the amount in your muscle cell. So there's something called a creatine pool, and you're basically just trying to increase the concentration in there. So then there's more creatine in there, which helps fuel and helps with the pathway that helps with really fast, quick, intense exercise. So it's not going to help your zone 2 run, but it'll help the recovery in your interval session, and it'll help with your weightlifting, and it'll help. Also, there's a lot of things around kind of its ability to help improve muscle strength. And then there's a whole nother world of creatine supplementation where they're looking at kind of effect on neuron diseases and degenerative diseases. So Alzheimer's, multiple sclerosis, Huntington's, also a lot of stuff they're looking at concussion. It's super interesting, and it's really, really, really quite groundbreaking, some of the stuff they're doing. But a lot of it's still quite theoretical because it's all to do with the blood-brain barrier, and your brain can actually produce its own source of creatine. And originally they weren't sure whether supplementing increased the amount in your brain, but they now can see, yes, it does. But again, it's where the science meets ethics of we can't be testing people's brains for the creatine concentrations. So the studies are quite limited, but they are doing a lot of work around kind of neurodegenerative diseases and creatine supplementation and its protective effects of concussion. So it's super important and it's really interesting science, but it's not quite there yet to say definitely this is going to help your brain. It's like, oh, maybe it could, but actually the use case now is for kind of muscle strength, protein synthesis, recovery. And that could be a possible byproduct. We're not quite 100% sure.
So in your daily smoothie, daily shake, you're looking at a vitamin D tablet plus creatine as part of your smoothie post-run, and you have set yourself up for good recovery. And a lot of people, we've had this question even on our last marathon trip was, do I need to bring my creatine on this trip for the weekend? Will I check in a bag to bring 5 kilos of creatine? And a genuine question. And if they're listening, I'm not picking on you because many people have asked it. That's why I bring it up. Dipping in and out of using creatine. Like, is there a path? If you haven't used it for 4 weeks, then it's not really in effect. If you start using it today, is it doing it? Or is it from the moment it's taken? Because a lot of people say, oh, you need to take it over the course of 6 weeks to 8 weeks for then it to be in the system. Or what is the rules, I suppose, of creatine?
Yeah, so it's all to do with increasing that concentration in your muscle cell. So what happens is every time you're exercising, you're using it. Like every time I'm moving, I'm using it. So you use it, you lose it. And it's having that consistent taking creatine. That's what's going to top that level up in your cells. So the idea behind doing a loading phase, which is what some people do, is like to really quickly increase that store, and then you keep it stable. So if you're just kind of supplementing 3 grams a day-ish, it'll take longer to get your pools kind of fully stocked, but you won't feel the effect quite so dramatically. But then once they're there, you're like, oh, cool, we're ticking along. But actually, if you're going on a marathon trip, the benefits of creatine are for your training. They're not for your marathon. Like the effect of creatine is helping recovery and helping with the intensity of your sessions during your training. So then you get fitter. So then when you get to a race day, you're in a better position. So if you stop taking your creatine, it doesn't really matter because you're not doing a 100-meter effort, you're running a marathon. And the fitness you've gained from your training and your ability to recover better so you can get more out of your sessions, that's where creatine's helping you, not on race day. So yeah, it doesn't matter if you don't take your creatine.
I'm conscious we've taken nearly an hour of your time, and we haven't even talked about your own kind of marathon training, the London Marathon you did in 2022 and Amsterdam the following year. But just to kind of put an exclamation point on the nutrition side of things, if you were to go back to doing that London Marathon, and I myself and Eric have never done it, but let's just assume there's a one big long term before the final stretch, and right there's a big billboard, and you have it, you bought out that billboard and that sign for the 50, 60,000 runners there, and you have your sports nutrition cap on you, what message would you send out to those runners in terms of nutrition? Is it something to do with electrolytes or creatine, or is it something you keep having conversations like, I need to keep telling people this before them to get it? Is there anything that pops to mind?
I mean, if they're just about to finish, it would tell them to get some chocolate milk when they finish.
Okay, the very start of a race, but something that you have runners' attention. I really didn't think that question through. Something
That's
that
all I was thinking of. Pizza.
Where's the finish line? To get enough run, you have all the runners' attention in the world right now in terms of sports nutrition. What is the one thing that you, or you've got one Instagram post left, and like you have a really cool account. Your Instagram is linked in the show notes there. People should follow you. You're only now put one more post up there. That's your pin post, your top post. What is that post on?
That you've got to fuel the fire. You've got to eat enough. At the end of the day, if your energy availability isn't there and you're not eating enough, it's all going to go south. So yeah, got to keep fueling.
Absolutely brilliant. Sian, I do want to touch back onto you, the personal side, the runner, and move away from the nutrition. You have covered a lot in terms of, we started out and we moved into netball, but then your running career yourself, you have done some fantastic runs, put in some fantastic times, and have dealt with injury along the way. How is that, I suppose, being so knowledgeable in the sport, how is it from the elations of the finish line and the runner's high to managing injury to restarting and going again? And which of the races, you've done some really nice marathons, which one was your favorite?
Yeah, it's quite tricky. So I have had a bit of like a up and down injury cycle for the kind of last year, really. So I had to drop out of London this year because I still wasn't back. I was meant to do Edinburgh last year, and that was going to be my first sub-3 attempt. And I basically ran around Battersea Park too many times too fast. And there's a bit of we don't know why, if this is why it happened, but there's quite a camber on Battersea Park, which is the park which I run in South London. And I run there with a club. So I'm part of Belgrave Harriers, and we run in a certain direction around the park at quite a pace sometimes. And I was also where I was doing my long runs, and I'm hypermobile. And I basically ended up stretching one ligament, compressing another, and having a bit of bone stress in one of the small bones of my ankle. So meant I had to pull out of Edinburgh. But I was like, you know what, it's gonna be fine. I've got London next year. I'll build back up. We're coming for you, London. And it just wasn't that easy to recover from, because it was it wasn't a very defined injury. It was quite a difficult, complex injury. And then it's kind of, you go back to with like shin splints and like bone stress on the other side, because I've been waiting on one side, and like just a bit messy. So we now, a year later, I'm touching all the wood, potentially getting somewhere. I still have a cyst in my ankle, which is what the latest MRI showed, which we just don't, I just don't really know what it means. And then we kind of like, I'm like, does it hurt? Like, I don't think so. I don't know. Like, so yeah, we're seeing how it goes. But I would love to do Berlin at the end of the year. So that's potentially going to be on the cards. And I'd love to get back to trail running. So my last trail run, well, no, my last trail race, I did a 75k ultra with one of my best friends, which was amazing. So I'd love to get back to that. But yeah, we'll get there eventually. We're just taking my time.
And how does it feel on that road? Because I know myself, on the running today or an interval session the other day, I was doing my best effort interval at what used to be almost an easy pace 3 years ago. How does it feel on the rebuild? How are you personally managing the fact that, okay, we have to do less, we have to do shorter, we have to do slower, we have to take our time, because if we rush back, we could cook ourselves for another year? How are you managing that element? Because not a lot of athletes manage that very well, and not a lot of influencers will talk about the bad days.
Yeah, and it's so tricky as well, because I do think there's so many people who just been like, oh, I'm a bit injured, but I'm going to carry on running anyway. I'm like, no, you're stupid. Like, you don't understand.
Oh, it's kind of harsh to me, but anyway.
Sean, you are stupid.
I'll take a 6 weeks off eventually after a year of niggles and injuries. But yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate that.
It's then being able to reflect that back on yourself. Like I used to be so bad. I'd be like, oh, this is a bit stiff, but I'll run it anyway. It'll make it better. It's like, no, it doesn't make it better. And like, actually, for me, what's going to bring me more joy is being able to do a marathon in 6 months than not being able to run again for another year. Like I literally hadn't raced for a year. Well, I haven't raced for a year. And I was part of the club. I wanted to be doing track season. I wanted to do cross country season. I managed one race. And I've had to pull out of everything, basically. I managed to do Hackney Half, which is the first time I've done a half distance in over a year. And now it's going, okay, do you feel like, is this, because I'm now at the point where there's a bit in injury, like recovery and coming back to running, where the injury, because it's tendon and soft tissue, you have to stress it to make it stronger. But there's a line of like where that stress is, like where on that balancing act. And it's going, okay, do I need an extra day recovery? Me 2 years ago would be like, nah, just run, you'll be fine. Whereas now I'm like, no, I'll text my coach, but like, I don't want to run. Like, and he'll be like, no, if you feel like you're like, oof, don't run. And it's actually playing the long game with it of going, okay, yes, it might be lovely and sunny for once in my life outside. And I might want to do that lovely, nice, easy run, but I'd rather be able to do my session tomorrow and actually keep building rather than like slowly chipping back down. That's not what we're trying to go up. And actually not running sometimes lets you run more. I think it's just retraining your brain, and it's so hard because as runners we like running and we want to go running. Like that's where it all comes from, right?
Especially every day when you wake up and you see that predictability thing in your Garmin, just go, you had a 20-minute 5K and now it's 20:10 and now it's 20:30 and now my watch is saying 21:20 and like in 6 weeks it's dropped over 2 minutes, even though I never got what I said in the watch in the first place. I just feel like, the watch is telling me I'm getting like my fitness is getting worse and worse by the day, and then just doing a podcast every week like you do and your content and stuff, you're like, oh man, I'm talking about running and I see people running and I won't even look at Strava anymore because it's just like I can't, because I know I'll start limp running again and stuff like that. But it is so difficult.
Yeah, and it's also doing things like I deleted all that stuff off my Garmin. Like I don't have any predictions. I don't have anything like that. I don't have any like. I got rid of it all because it's all made up, right? Because I haven't been for a run, it thinks I'm less fit, but it doesn't see what I'm doing on a bike, or it doesn't see what I'm doing on a ski erg, or like. Actually, there are ways you can be. I'm now in a position where I'm a lot fitter than my legs can handle. So now it's keeping the rein on going, no, a leg 6 out of 10 is not a lung 6 out of 10. We've got to readjust the expectations, and actually being able to run is better than being able to run 5 minutes faster. Bye.
What is on your Garmin? It's took it all off. What is on the Garmin? It's just the time.
It's the time and training status and patience, and if I've had a nap or not.
The only bits I love like that as well, since I've started running on a treadmill, it won't give you a fitness prediction or tell you VO2 max until you run outside. So obviously GPS time over a period, they calculate that into you getting fitter as well. I've noticed that since I've been restricted to treadmills. But one thing I love about the tracking is the intensity, because sometimes, and that's probably one thing I look at, is how is this week comparing load wise versus last week? Because sometimes that can be the first trigger to let you know maybe we're pushing a little bit much, or maybe we need to be fueling the jet a little bit more for this week.
Yeah, and that's the thing as well, just remembering that the more you run, the more you have to eat. Simple. Like you can't add 10 kilometers worth of running into your training schedule in a week and not eat anymore. Like where are we getting this extra juice from? And I think that's again a really sensible thing of thinking, okay, intensity's up, so fuel needs to go up. And that's why those post-run snacks, like they are really valuable, because if you're doing an extra run, if you're getting that extra run snack, you're already a step closer to being energy balanced, which is at the end of the day what the aim is. Because it is then when you're like your intensity creeps up, your recovery is worse, that's when this kind of balance is going the wrong direction of we're not gaining fitness. We're then like in a state of, oh dear, this might go wrong. So actually, yeah, it is though. It's interesting looking at also on Strava where you can see kind of like your relative
fitness progress.
The relative like matched runs, like
yeah.
I think that's a really unsung graph that people don't look at because it doesn't look that great. But if you understand what that's showing you, you can quite easily see like how much progress you're making over a training block. And also that actually something that just because it feels easier now doesn't mean it's the same intensity that you were working at 4 weeks ago. And again, another reminder that you're doing more, so you need more. Like it's more is more.
More is more.
Is so important when you're doing the same kind of runs and stuff, because I'm able to track where I was back in January to 3-4 months later in the same run. Like, oh, pace was somewhat similar, and you can see the relative effort could be 100 and something back then, and then it's only 39 and stuff. Like, oh, that's actually, to me, that's a better sign of fitness than the fitness tracker graph they have over 3 months, 6 months thing, the up and down. Because I've looked at it and go, no, I'm actually fitter than that, or I'm less fit than that, and it hasn't added up. But that relative effort in Strava seems to be pretty close for me.
Yeah, the fitness graph is, I think, a load of nonsense because it's just your total load. Like if I've been smashing loads of weight training sessions,
say
I'm just as fit, if not fitter, which is a lie. So it's going, actually, okay, let's take a pinch of salt with all of this. Like, how do you feel? How does your easy run feel? How is your heart rate on an easy run? Like that's actually kind of the best predictor of, are you getting fitter? It's also just, are you feeling better? You shouldn't be feeling worse and worse and worse through a training block.
One of your posts, you say effort is relative.
Yeah, exactly. And it's like one day for me, easy run might be a 5:10 or whatever. And then the next day it might be 30 seconds a kilometer slower or faster because I've slept better, eaten better. I'm at a different time in my menstrual cycle. Like this, it's hotter, it's colder. It's like, I've had a good email, I've had a bad email. Like, there's so many things, and it's actually your body doesn't know that pace. It's just like, oh, where's my heart rate need to be right now to get enough blood in my muscles. So yeah.
Listen to the body, as they say. It's everyone is saying it, but yeah, it really matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
The best place to keep up with you, Instagram?
Yes. Yeah.
Well, hopefully you get back on track and you're all set for Berlin in a couple of months' time. The absolute best luck to you, and I assume London on the back of the cards next year for you.
Oh, hopefully. That's the Berlin is so that I qualify for London.
Oh wow, okay.
So
the whole podcast, don't put pressure on yourself, and then you just threw a big lump of pressure on your shoulders there for that one. The absolute best luck for you. We keeping up on your Instagram, Hagen, on that. Absolutely phenomenal listening to your knowledge and everything sports nutrition and your running journey over the last, I think it's an hour 20 minutes so far, but we could listen to you all day. So much knowledge. Thank you very much for coming on the podcast.
No worries at all. Thank you for having me.
And that's it for this week's episode of the Any Given Runday podcast. Myself, Sian, and Eric. Take care.